for today. And this is George over here in the corner with the mask. This week we don't have any new movies for you, but we have a very exciting old movie that came out, 20 years ago?
2001, yeah.
So 19 years ago.
3 months.
Almost as old as George.
Yeah, I was going to say 3 months after September 11th. Wow. That's weird.
Making fun of George because he's a baby, but yeah, so funny story, actually. I was 11 when this movie came out, and I remember one night, all my friends were really into it. One night my family had a babysitter, I think it was my grandma, and they put this movie on for me, and I have four younger siblings. And they put the movie on, and we got to the point in the movie where they announced that they will now all be called the Fellowship of the Rings. So that's about an hour and a half into the movie, which is the typical length of a normal movie. And then they turned the movie off, and they said, "Okay, kids, it's time for bed." I just thought that was the end of the movie. And I never watched it again. And this was my first time watching it. So we got to the end of the movie, and I was like, okay, well, that was great. And I remembered everything that happened up until that point.
Then you're like, oh, this is a whole new movie.
There was a whole new movie. There was a whole new movie. I was just baffled. I thought that those were from the second and third movies, which I've also never sat down and watched. I've seen pieces of them here and there when people have them on, of course.
Yeah.
And I know them from memes.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head there. These movies were made at a time when we used to have big, sweeping, long, epic stories like Ben-Hur, Titanic, Gone with the Wind, and the list goes on. Gladiator, Lawrence of Arabia. Oh my God!
The two VHS tape movies.
Pearl Harbor. Though I don't think Pearl Harbor is that good of a movie, but you're right. It does.
How long was Once Upon a Time in Hollywood?
2 hours and 20 minutes or something. Well, anyways, if you've never seen Lord of the Rings, they're one of the greatest movies ever made. J.R.R. Tolkien. If you've ever seen a TV show or book or movie about wizards and elves and dragons, it all started from J.R.R. Tolkien, who really brought fantasy into like popular culture. Before that, there was like Norse mythology in England and German, but there was never like a whole genre dedicated to elves, dragons, dwarves, you can.
Well,
I can
fairy tales.
Fairy tales, yes.
There wasn't a long.
Like there wasn't there was no genre that said fantasy. Like before that, it was like mythology, fairy tale, like you're saying.
Yeah, you're right.
And so these movies, funny question. Okay, what is the most bought? Lord of the Rings is the second most read and bought book in the history of any book. What's number one?
The Bible.
Yes, you knew it.
Of course.
Wow, A star for you, A+. Yeah, Lord of the Rings is are books that are very much treasured, read. I know a few friends who read Lord of the Rings, the entire trilogy, once a year.
More often than they read the Bible.
Well, they're not wrong. These things. I mean, J.R.R. Tolkien created an entire language that's
crazy.
He wrote.
That's unheard of.
He created alphabets. He created, there's so many things you see in the movie. The little details, like when when Gandalf tells Frodo to put the ring in the fireplace, and he's like, "Put out your hand, Frodo. It's quite cool." And then Gandalf says, "Is there any markings?" "No, it's normal." And he kind of like sighs relief. He's like, "Oh, thank God! I thought it was like the one ring." And then he's like, "Wait, there's markings," and it like all these like writings come on.
That's a whole language. They are all token.
And not once, but like 3 of them. That's a Mordor that's the dwarf. No. That's the Mordor writing of the Sauron, and then there is the Elvish writing, and there's the dwarf language that when they open the mines of Moria, and they're like,
wow, you're right.
The book I don't think any book exists today as detailed and as epic of a feeling than nothing. Nothing exists. I mean, you may love the Avengers movies, you may love Star Wars, but
Potter.
You may love Harry Potter, you might love Chronicles of Narnia, but nothing comes close to grandeur and like the epicness and the world building that exists within Lord of the Rings. And people say, like, even with the extended edition, it's still not covering half the book. That they're even, I mean, what J.R. Tolkien accomplished is probably something that no other author that I know of has ever done. It took decades and decades to do the research.
I've always thought it was remarkable that Tolkien basically spent his entire life creating what he called the secondary world. You know, he created the languages, he created the thousands of years of history. It's so rich and so detailed that nobody today that writes a piece of fiction is ever going to come close to the sheer wealth of information and detail. Of course, all of that makes it fiendishly difficult to adapt into any sort of movie.
And, you know, if there's elves, where do they live? What do they eat? What is their language? What are their clothes? If dwarves lives in the mountains, and what's that looking like, you know? If humans exist and hobbits exist, and all of this stuff is so massive and just beautiful, and you can see it in the detail. I mean, like, I know people who don't even watch Lord of the Rings just to watch it. They're just being blown away by the cinematography.
That was me in this one, yeah.
Yeah, and the music and the epic feeling and the, oh my god, hearing that soundtrack in IMAX, my heart felt like it was going to drop out of my chest. So anyways, if you've never seen Lord of the Rings, here's my suggestion to you. Go watch it. Split it up. Do whatever you need to do. Enjoy the ride, because this is a movie that will never come again in the history of cinema. Movies will never be made like this. Alright, second quiz question. Lord of the Rings, there's only 2 movies in the history before Lord of the Rings that have ever been filmed back to back. So Lord of the Rings 1, 2, and 3 were shot as one big movie.
Yeah.
They were never split up. They never came back and made the movie next year or a few years later. Lord of the Rings was shot as one giant movie. What other franchise in the history of cinema did that besides Lord of the Rings?
I want to say Avengers.
Avengers did. Infinity War ended,
Harry
but
Potter?
Harry Potter did before Lord of the Rings. There's only been 2 movies that have ever done it.
Harry Potter was after Lord of the Rings.
Only Deathly Hallows Part 1 and 2 were filmed as one movie, and it was after Lord of the Rings.
Okay.
Tell me it wasn't Twilight. No, I'm just kidding.
No. I'll give you a clue.
Spider-Man?
I'll give you a clue.
I want to say it's an Avengers movie.
Nope. I'll give you a clue. It's your favorite franchise.
Star Wars. No.
That might be your favorite, not Shannon. What's your favorite trilogy?
Back to the Future!
Back to the Future.
I should have known.
Really?
Yep, Back to the Future.
Part 2 and 3 were filmed together, but Part 1 was separate.
Yeah, they were before. Well, Lord of the Rings, of course, did all 3. Back to the Future Part 2 and 3 were shot like in one.
I see what you're saying, because Lord of the Rings was instrumental in getting movies to be able to film 1, 2, 3 back to back.
Yeah.
Before that, it was pretty much unheard of.
Right.
You would sign on for one movie, and then if it did well, you might do another movie.
Yeah.
And it makes such a big difference when the movies are filmed like this.
Oh yeah. There's such a rhythm that you can feel within the context of the movie when it's just kind of this just going. The story is continuing. I don't think any other trilogy, even Star Wars, you're like, oh no, that looks completely different from that Star Wars movie. Lord of the Rings just feels like this one giant miniseries just splitting them into three parts.
It is. It's just a long miniseries.
Anyways, we're talking too much. We need to. Okay, so the reason we saw this movie in the first place and revisited it, Peter Jackson, the great Peter Jackson, who wrote and directed and has probably like 30 Oscars after Lord. I think Lord of the Rings has the most Oscars ever won by any movie ever in the history of cinema. I think
well deserved.
And but he went back and got 20. Well, they filmed it in the 90s, but of course it was released 2001, 2002.
They did film
2003.
This in the 90s?
Yeah, it started in '99. So these movies are over 20 years old. The technology wasn't as good as it is today. Today you can watch it in Dolby Vision, 4K, really high quality film print, the way film is. So, Peter Jackson went back and did some really cool things that I want to get into.
It's been really great having a chance to revisit the Lord of the Rings trilogy, and we've been able to remaster our 6 movies in 4K. It never looked as sharp in the old days, that's for sure. Which the Lord of the Rings trilogy was shot first about 20 years ago. The Lord of the Rings was shot on 35mm. The colour timing was done in an old-fashioned photomechanical way for the first Lord of the Rings movie. Then we switched to digital colour timing for the 35mm negative for the next 2. Being able to tweak individual colours and it's the sort of thing we just couldn't do 20 years ago. So it's fun to have all the toys now, which I didn't have all this stuff to play with in the old days.
Let's talk about Lord of the Rings, the re-release in IMAX 4K prints. If you ever watched the movie and thought, I'm missing some cool details, and you wanted to see more of the details, the more crisp 4K IMAX quality detail, or on a big screen. Shannon has a 4K television. This movie, you could just pause it. There are so many scenes I saw in the mines of Moria that were there were writings on the wall. There were books and skeletons scattered all over. There were details of weaponry and skeletons and clothes and very. I mean,
it's immersive. The entire world is a cohesive, immersive unit.
Yeah.
I was in awe of all the elvish, when they're in the elf world, and they're kind of up in the
Rivendell.
clouds. Yeah, Rivendell. And they have, all the woven pieces of wood. I loved how consistent it all was.
It's you're getting what's the word? You're getting it's like cinema porn. Everything is just so, you are just, like you said, the music, the detail, oh my God, the Shire. Seeing the Shire on the big
Shire was
screen.
beautiful.
Wow.
That was just, I hadn't seen it since I was a little kid, and just to see how they put it all together with the hobbit houses and the grass, and it's sunshiny and everyone's happy, and you're the hobbit house is inside, it's a big circle, that was
the doors
so
of those,
cool.
yeah. The hills are the way they filmed the hills, so that you had these hills, right? The hills become a house, so they dig under the hills, take out the dirt, and it just kind of has a over-scoping, and they did that in real life. Those places, this is before CGI.
You can go visit them now.
Yeah. Same thing with the Rivendell sets and, all the movies, all the places that you'll see in the trilogy actually exist in real life. You're not looking at CGI.
That's why it looks so good.
Oh my goodness, the stairs around the trees that the elves have to walk.
Cool.
Of course there's certain things like the river where the statues are putting the hands up, the old kings. That's of course CGI because there's no way they could build that. But everything else, the inside, every time they were inside somewhere or on a path somewhere, it existed. You know what I'm saying?
It's so cool.
For me it was very immersive.
It definitely is more immersive. I haven't seen this. Last time I saw it, I was a kid. It was probably on a terrible
11 years old.
TV, in my house on a screen this big with 4 other kids sitting in front of me. So, even then, it's good. So with this, I don't know the difference. I wouldn't know if this was remastered or not. I wouldn't know if there was extra scenes added or not. Did we see a version with the extended cut?
No. I think the 3 hours is the cutoff line.
Right.
For anybody. I couldn't do it. Even 3 hours feels like a lot. So, yeah, I think 3 hours is a nice sweet spot for them to just release these.
Yeah.
I honestly thought it was absolutely amazing. But once again, I'd never seen it even on a big screen. So going in and watching this in the theater, it was absolutely awesome because it gave me the chance to have that theatrical release. That it was really phenomenal, and I absolutely loved it, and it made me want to watch the other 2. Even though we're going to watch the other 2, it made me want to watch the other 2.
Yeah.
Just because of how amazing it was. And
yeah, and I didn't realize how amazing the acting level in these movies are. I really felt for Bilbo when he says, Frodo, my boy, I am so sorry I put this burden on you, and he starts, literally just starts crying, and then, Frodo just kind of, lightly just holds his shoulder, and this is, just, holding Bilbo. Oh my God, that freaking killed me, because I have...
Especially since right before he was about ready to kill Frodo for it.
Well, he was going into the... it's like... It is...
Yeah.
It's a demonic... The ring is... It's like it possesses you.
Do you see it as a metaphor for greed and power?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
And we'll go more into this later, but a lot of the things you're seeing in Lord of the Rings are about good versus evil, an angelic being who fell onto Earth, Middle Earth, and he lost his wings, and then he tempted the humans and the dwarves and the elves with these rings, but they were all corrupted. They were corrupted by these rings. Then he made the one ring for himself to cover all the land and get all the power, even though he told the elves and the humans and everybody else he's got these special rings for them. It's like Adam and Eve eating the apple. Uran falls down, gets corrupted, and all of the evil presence that he has, he becomes Sauron, and then Gandalf is the representation of Jesus Christ, a wanderer who, with a pointy head and a beard, who doesn't have a home. But he has a lot of power, but he doesn't show it. But he's always going from town to town and place to place, helping people, seeking them out. It's kind of like spreading the gospel of Jesus Christ as he went on the earth. It is so well put together, and the way it represents the Bible and the Christian faith, and J.R.R. Tolkien was a firm believer in the Roman Catholic faith, so he took a lot of the mythology within the Catholic Church and the saints and just that world he built.
I've actually heard that quite a bit as well.
Yeah.
That basically a lot of it was based off Catholic religion.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah.
I was gonna say, when you write a good and evil story, you can't help but mirror reality of good and evil.
Yeah, and I think J.R.R. Tolkien was the first one to really write this kind of storyline, good versus evil, and this world, and using the Bible as a force of what would a person in the world that's trying to save the world look like, and he thought of Gandalf as this figure, this Christ-like figure who is, he lives in the world. He doesn't have a home. He's traveling from the Shire to the humans to the dwarves and everywhere else, and just trying to help people.
And
a lot of that.
C.S. Lewis goes, "Oh yeah, I can do that."
But C.S. Lewis was like, no, this is the Bible.
Yeah, C.S. Lewis was like, this is an allegory.
Yeah.
J.R.R. Tolkien said, I've heard quotes from him where he said he hates allegories.
Okay. Yeah, I've heard that too, but I think he likes the idea of this just kind of reminding people of the Christian faith without it being shoved in your face like Narnia. Narnia is going out of its
on
way.
the nose.
Yeah,
Narnia
exactly.
was.
Anyways, we can talk on and on, but let's get to the meat of it. Right. Lindsay is one of the people who did the cinematography. He took the landscape of New Zealand and the terrain into the Fellowship's Odyssey. Even his dark, cavernous underground sequences make careful use of light and shadow. You can really see that in the cave scene, the detail of how light is portrayed and darkness is portrayed, and how kind of just the light coming through the window, even where the king of the dwarves is dead with the book, and the light is just hitting him, and the darkness surrounding them, with these orcs and just the army of darkness that came and just decimated the dwarves. We can't get out. We can't, drums in the dark, we can't get out, right? All of that stuff is so well put together, and I felt claustrophobic in the Mines of Moria scene. I felt like you were in hell. It felt like just a place of darkness, deep underground in the mountains somewhere. And just seeing, and then of course the big army, because Pippin drops. Is it Merry or Pippin that drops the book through the well, and it just kind of
Pippin.
Was it Pippin? Fool of a tooth. Do yourself a favor and throw yourself in next time, as Gandalf says it, and then it makes a noise, and all the orcs wake up, and then the Balrog, the dragon, wakes up, and they're just we gotta, and Gandalf's go, we're about to get overtaken, right? And just the immense of detail of that, and the stairs when they're climbing down it and around it, and then in one part of the staircase
falling.
Oh my
It reminded
god!
me of playing like Zelda when I was a kid.
Yeah.
And you're in the fire temple, and you're like, doo-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo. And then there's a boss at the end, and then you fall off, and you need another life to get through, and then you're stuck in the water temple for 7 years in Zelda.
Oh really? I don't think I've ever played the game, but that's really interesting.
That is what it reminded me of.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
and just like the staircase breaking off, and they have to like lean forward to jump, and then the staircase breaks and fall over, and they get to the other staircase, and now they're running around it when one part of the staircases, and the music that's kicking in, and then of course the heartbreaking scene where like it's basically Gandalf versus this demonic, like evil dragon-like thing, and like he's like telling the Fellowship to go, and I mean it just crushes me, and like Frodo is looking at Gandalf, and like Gandalf is basically sacrificing himself for the Fellowship, and then Frodo is just like looking at Gandalf, and then Gandalf says, "Fly, you fools," and then he just falls to the darkness, you know, and no, I don't know what you're laughing at.
Fly, you fools.
That's hilarious.
I mean, what else is he gonna say? Like, don't, you know, he's basically saying, hey, like, what are you doing? I'm about, like, go, run, like, get out of here.
And then he pulls an Obi-Wan Kenobi and jumps off the cliff and kills himself, but not really.
Wait, what are you talking about?
Gandalf at the end of the movie. It reminded me of when Obi-Wan Kenobi, I think that's the guy that kills him. Like in Star Wars, he lets himself get killed by Darth Vader so that he can come back as a stronger ghost presence.
Oh, A New Hope. Yeah. I see what you're saying. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like it's an allegory for like, you know, Jesus' sacrifice for the disciples, and like, you know, the Fellowship is basically the disciples, right? In a way, and like Jesus has this big mission, and he's saying like, what do you? And Gandalf's kind of like, you know, this is, and then you see Frodo's heart just break when he sees his like mentor, someone he grew up and saw as a father figure, basically fall into the cavern, and you just see like everyone is just like decimated. Yeah. Like, you know, like they just can't accept the fact.
Except for Ryder. Or Strider, was it?
Aragorn. Yeah, Aragorn's like, hey guys, let's go. And they're like, give it. And like, you know, Boromir's like, oh, give them a minute for pity's sake. They just saw like the most heartbreaking, like, you know. And Aragorn's like, yeah, we don't got time for that. There's orcs who are coming. Like, he can say that without actually saying it, but you're feeling that. It's like, there's an army and this giant, evil, demonic, dragon-like thing. Like, go, like, yeah, let's go cry later, but right now we just need to move. Like, you know, like, pick them up, no time to rest, let's go. And when they get to Rivendell, they're finally able, like, they just have PTSD, it feels like. They're all just, like, shaken up to their core.
Was that Rivendell, or that was I thought that was the...
the
witch,
sorry.
The Witch of the Woods.
Yeah, sorry. I keep saying
Rivendell.
I keep forgetting there's two elf cities. There's the one Rivendell, where they were at, where they made the Fellowship, and now they're at the Forest of... I don't know. I forgot the name of it. I can't remember.
I don't remember. I just remember something about that. It was the Forest of the White Witch or something.
Yeah. And, you know, she talks, you know, and they get time to rest and stuff. But it is just, it's so immersive, it's so big, and you're like, you're just kind of like, it really is going from one giant epic set piece to another giant epic set piece of, like, just immersiveness, you know? And there's even a part where it talks about they took painting, like, an artist came in, and they're like, oh, you're trying to make this 4K? Somebody came in who's an artist, went in and added, like, painting to the scene to make that, like, that 3D, like, you felt it when you were watching. It felt like the world became even more immersive in detail because of that. Whatever they did, I don't know, but it's cool.
It looks like some of the characters had Instagram filters on their faces.
Yeah, no, that's it's like an extra level of, like, realism than ever been portrayed before. Even the orcs, man, like, the detail in their faces.
Yeah, I did notice that they were really detailed.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't even question that they were people in costumes. I just thought
oh, that's an orc.
They were orcs. Yeah, oh, that's what an orc looks like. Okay.
Yeah, and it is just absolutely stunning. Like, guys, like, if you love these books, if you've seen these movies, do yourself a favor, find your local if there's theaters open next to you, we were fortunate enough to get these prints in IMAX that, and we will be seeing Two Towers and Return of the King as well. It was selling out. Like, I think we gave our tickets that we originally bought, and we gave it to somebody else because
all four of them. There was 4 people. 2 different couples were in line, and they all wanted to see it.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, we have 4 tickets. We're getting them refunded if you can wait. And the guy at the counter was like, yeah, just hold on. I'll get all of you in.
Yeah.
But he turned away like 3 or 4 other people as we were waiting in line.
Yeah, I mean, I think the word has gotten out, like, what level. I mean, even I didn't think, like, I remember we did like a 2-minute like preview for Lord of the Rings, and I was like, I love these movies, but is it really going to make much of a difference or not? And I can easily say, I think this is a good place to just stop that. I can easily say it is definitely worth going back to that world and seeing it again on the big screen. It's
definitely more watchable. Any movie is going to be more watchable on the big screen just because you don't have any distractions.
Oh yeah, that's very true. I don't disagree. Okay, last thing, like even the sound was upgraded. So Dolby Atmos wasn't available when these movies came out, but we've been to Dolby Cinema.
Yeah.
We've seen tons of movies, and the sound is just like every little pin drop and every soundtrack, the action, just oh my god. There were, the ring wraiths. What are they called? The black hooded figures who were like hunting the hobbits. And there were like these black cloaks on them. Like the way they were sweeping through like wooded areas in the dark, or in where they were like staying at the Prancing Pony, like the hotel like place, and they're just the way the music and the detail kind of incorporate, it became so much more, like I felt scared just by seeing those images because there were just so much detail and they looked so much scarier than I've ever seen. And I think the soundtrack and the thumping like action with the sword, even the sword sound when they're like it makes that like grinding, whatever it was, like oh god, or like when they're running and they jump over the fence and then like Frodo has to jump onto the boat to get into the river. I actually got really, like I was like tensed up. I was like, oh my god, this is absolutely terrifying for me. Like just to watch this scene.
Yeah.
My favorite part of the movie was when they're just in the Shire and everything's sunny and happy, and I think I like Narnia better.
Narnia's more kid-friendly, while Lord of the Rings... I mean, The Hobbit is more kid-friendly. I think Lord of the Rings is more darker and more adult.
Yeah.
It's like a fantasy... Like, it's like an adult fantasy.
Yeah.
While Narnia feels like a kid's fantasy. Or like... Actually, you know what? I would say Harry Potter got really dark, too, in the end, now that I think about it. Because they started out very kidsy, but by the time... Like
they grew with their audience.
Yeah, like it got darker and darker as the movies went along.
Narnia has a lot of adult themes underlying it, but it's kid accessible.
But yeah, this definitely felt. You're right. I'm just agreeing with you.
Yeah.
But I mean, as someone who, well, you said you saw it as a kid, and I'm sure you also saw these.
Saw the first half and thought that was the whole movie.
They're probably like, it's getting too dark for these kids. So let's turn it up. Movie ended. Like right when you said that, I was like, oh, I see what they did. They probably didn't want to show you because the minds of Moria and Gandalf dying and like all that stuff happening.
That's tragic.
And Boromir, oh my god, Boromir's scene. Even though he messed up, he fought for the hobbits and tried to protect them in the end. Even though he was getting shot with arrows. And oh my god, that scene where he's like, he just tells Aragorn, is like, I would have gone to the White City and walked through the doors and called you king. And Aragorn's like. It's like, hey, it's okay, like, it's alright, like, I don't hate you or anything, like, for not realizing I'm king or whatever. He was just like, yeah, but I want you to know, like, I would have followed you if you were the king. And for Boromir to say that, whose father is the king of Minas Tirith, the White City of Men, like, to say, hey, you know what, I would have told my dad to step down because you're Isildur's heir. You are the rightful king. You have the lineage of a king. And Aragorn's like, I get it. Like, it's all good, brother. And, like, Aragorn just kind of, and then, like, as Boromir's life is fading, Aragorn just kisses Boromir on the forehead. He's not enemy. Like, he's making it very clear, like, Boromir made a mistake, and he was tempted by the ring, just like everyone has been. I mean, who doesn't get tempted by the ring, for goodness sakes? Everyone has. Like, you don't want to be near. Even Gandalf's like, Like, if you notice...
Don't you dare give that to me.
It's like, yeah, like, he sees the ring and he's about to grab it. It's like little details like this. And before he touches it, he just realizes, if I touch that thing, it's game over for me.
Yeah. Well, because he did, at one point, at the very start, he did touch it, and he saw Sauron's eye.
No. He
didn't touch it?
He did not touch it.
Oh, my gosh.
And when Frodo says, like, take it, can't stay in the Shire, take it! And Gandalf's like, don't tempt me, Frodo! And he's just, like, making it very clear, like, he can't, none of them can touch it. Literally none of them can touch it.
Why can Frodo touch it?
That's the thing, because it is the truth of the hobbits are, they're not strong, they're not like big and like epic and fighters like Legolas or Aragorn with swords and take down armies and fight orcs.
Simple.
They're simple, but like, oh my god, they're pure. They are pure of heart. They are like, besides him, and even Aragorn takes the ring, holds it in his hand
for just a second
and then puts it right back. Like, puts it right back and says to Frodo, I want you to know, Frodo, I would have gone to the very borders and the doors of Mordor, basically the doors of hell, and would have stood by your side. And Frodo says, I know, but you guys, I have to leave. None of you can protect me. Because Frodo says to him, can you protect me from yourself? And Aragorn has that moment that he's like, and he knows he has the lineage of Isildur's heir, which is the guy who cut off Sauron's hand and it fell. That's Aragorn is his great grandson from thousands and thousands of years ago, and he's looking at it and he's like at Rivendell when he sees Boromir come in with the sword broken and the painting. Boromir just can't seem to understand and like kind of like he's a failure, and Aragorn's like, that's my grandfather, fuck. He's like, ugh. And then Arwen comes in and she's like, you will be tempted with the same fate, but I believe you, Aragorn, that you will redeem your family lineage, because you will not be corrupted by it. You will not fall for it. You will fight that weakness, and you're gonna win, because you're a better man than your great grandfather or father were. He goes around town, not telling people who he is, and just helping people. A lot like when people met Jesus on the street.
Yeah.
Like, he wasn't like, I'm the Son of God, and I bring, like, power and wealth, and if I wanted to do with the snap of my finger, just destroy this planet.
He waited for people to figure it out on their own.
Yeah.
And that's why I think, like, the three personalities, I wrote this down, but I want to bring it up so I get it right. The three personalities of Gandalf, a dual identity, a common man, and a powerful mystical figure. Aragorn accepts his leadership role and embraces his destiny. And Samwise Gamgee, disciple-like, self-sacrificial, and faithful, are all different representations of Jesus Christ. Gandalf sacrifices himself for the rest of the Fellowship. Aragorn heal his family lineage and heal people, even taking someone like Boromir or anyone else that comes along and just kind of giving him that ability to find peace and righteousness again. Yeah. And Samwise Gamgee does not question, like, Samwise Gamgee's like, I have to go protect Frodo. He is so sacrificial, and so he will...
I'm going alone, Sam.
Yeah.
Of course you are.
And I'm
coming with you. I love it.
Yeah,
that was amazing.
And he does not once has Samwise Gamgee has ever fought his purpose.
No.
I'm going to go with Frodo, and I'm going to protect him, and that's what Gandalf told me to do. Basically, Jesus told me to do. And I'm going to keep Frodo safe. That is my purpose. And if that is my purpose, nothing else matters.
He's like a Matthew or a John or...
Yeah, like literally...
John the Baptist.
That's spoilers for the next movie, so I don't want to go into it. But, all three, Gandalf, Aragorn, and Samwise Gamgee, represent a different aspect of Jesus Christ himself. They really do carry that, like, spirit you need to fight evil and win and bring peace to the world that Jesus did when he died for us. It is so beautiful. And when Gandalf says, like, I wish the ring had never come to me, I wish none of this would have happened, and Gandalf says, even the I think it's Galadriel who says it, even the smallest person can change the
world.
Can change the world. Coach of history, yeah. He's like, even the smallest person, and it's like, you know, and then he says, like, you know, Gandalf says to Frodo, if Bilbo was meant to have the ring, then you were also meant to have it. And that must be a courageous thought. Kind of like this spiritual, faithful thing. Like, you were born, you are here, and you were meant to take on this epic journey of, like, taking the One Ring. And, like, doing it, and yeah, it is hard, it is difficult, but like Galadriel also says, Frodo, if you can't do it, then no one will. And it's like literally saying, like, these strong, powerful men, like Boromir, Aragorn, Legolas, even Gimli, who's a dwarf, they are powerful, they can fight, they're strong, and from the world's point of view, they are like who you want if you were to go to war or fight in a video game, right? But yet the books make it very clear. Frodo is the hero, the little guy, the one that shouldn't be responsible. Like, nobody in the world would ever trust someone like Frodo to save the world. They would trust Aragorn, Gandalf, Boromir, Legolas, the 500 elves that exist, or human warriors that exist. But nope, the book makes it, and I think the setup, the thing the Fellowship does so beautifully well, and it is my favorite movie outside of Two Towers and Return of the King, and they're all great. They're one big story. But the thing that I love the most about Lord of the Rings, the Fellowship of the Ring, is that it is first and foremost a story of the little guy who overcomes the darkness and defeats evil. Mm-hmm. You know? And the way J.R. Tolkien goes into that is just so spectacular to me. Like, I don't think I've ever read a book or a movie like...
To write an entire language is something that usually takes years and takes, like, a course of many, many people slowly evolving language. Nobody sits down and writes a language, let alone 3 of them, and then puts them into a world because...
More, actually, with the other 2 books.
Yeah.
I mean, the closest thing I could think of was the
Klingon?
Cyrillic alphabet.
The what?
Cyrillic alphabet.
What's
what
that?
Is that from?
What did you
like, Russian uses it.
Okay.
That was actually, I don't know. It was a bishop. It might have actually been 2 bishops that were brothers. They ended up creating the Cyrillic alphabet, which is now what Russian is based off, because originally they didn't actually have they had no written language until they came and created a written language for them. It wasn't exactly making an entire language, but
they created a way of writing.
Yes.
But yeah, and then the only other world I can think of that has its own language would be like Klingon, maybe, which I don't think is nearly as fleshed out.
I don't think, like the alphabet and the way Klingon speaks is, I don't think, like you said, is. I don't think it. Yeah,
it's
like
not fully fleshed out. You can take college classes in Klingon though, and
that's
in
true.
Elvish.
That's true. You're right.
So yeah, I mean, what Lord of the Rings does, like, it shouldn't even be humanly possible. I was more of a Narnia kid, and I don't know.
This goes right into what I was going to go. Unlike Aslan in C.S. Lewis's The Chronicles of Narnia, no single character fully embodies the Christ figure of the story. Rather, each of 3 aspects clearly symbolizes a different aspect of Jesus Christ, as we were talking about.
Yeah, Aslan is just a clear Jesus figure, and the White Witch is obviously Satan, and there's no questioning that.
Yeah, we did this already.
No.
Identity, yes.
I had a question about the White Witch in this one.
Yeah. In Lord of the Rings?
Yes.
There was a White Witch in this?
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah.
Instead of it's the woman who's talking to everybody's head, like in Frodo's head, and
I thought she was a good one.
Well, she is. She's the White Witch.
Oh, okay.
Not like Narnia White Witch.
Narnia White Witch is bad. Okay.
Yeah.
In this story, she literally is called the White Witch in The Lord of the Rings, and Now there was the scene where basically Frodo offered the ring to her, and she basically declined it.
Oh, really?
What exactly happened there?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm kind of curious
So-
on that backstory.
So you gotta remember, people like Galadriel, the White Witch, Gandalf, the Wizard, these people are very powerful on their own rights. They are, I mean, they just have power, right? So the White
Yeah.
Witch has power, Gandalf, of course, has power. They're basically like people who could rule the world if they wanted to become evil, and the ring tempts them the most. So like Galadriel, Gandalf, Elrond, that's his name, Arwen's dad.
Okay.
All of these people can't even touch the ring, but they are tempted even more than humans because they're so. It's like an angel being tempted by Satan, right? So like I'm tempted, but I think I'm more protected. But I think the fallen angels have a more of a pull towards falling, I guess. So I guess these are powerful beings that aren't human. They possess in themselves a very essence that could, if they wanted to, they could wipe out an entire group of people or a continent or a town or city, or they could take over and like basically rule it if they wanted to, because that's how much power it has, how much power they carry. And so for Galadriel, when she wants to be tested. So when Frodo's like, take it, and she just kind of like loses it, she is telling Frodo basically like what she would do with the ring if she had it in the, like, instead of a Dark Lord, you'll have
like
a queen.
Let me show you the future, and then you'll not give this thing to me.
Yeah, like, well, no, not even just that. She's literally saying, like, I want to be as powerful as Sauron, but instead of a Dark Lord, you'll have a Dark Queen with immense power,
Like
where she
turn
could.
her evil.
Yeah. So she is actually speaking on what she wants to do right in that
The
moment.
bigger question is, C.S. Lewis and J.R.R. Tolkien were friends. They couldn't have come up with different names for... Why do they both have a white witch in their books? Come on, guys.
Well, they're best friends.
Get your act together.
I mean,
It's like the one's like, this is what I'm doing with the White Witch. And J.R. Tolkien's like, watch me.
I can do that too.
Yeah.
Oh, I can also have a white witch.
So going a little bit back to, like, just the reflection of, the Bible and things like that. So for those of you who don't know, the Similarian, have you guys heard of the Similarian?
No.
Oh, that's the C.S. Lewis book.
No, it's a pre-Hobbit book.
Oh.
The Valor
It's a pre-Hobbit book?
Yes. So in the
Written by J.R. Tolkien.
And J.R. Tolkien, yeah. I don't know if he finished it. I think he might have died working on it. I think his son finished. I can't remember. Something like that. The Similarian and the Valor are basically the gods and goddesses of Middle-earth. And Valinor is the land of bliss. So basically, Sauron is basically a good guy. He's the angel. And Valor is basically pre-fall. So Valor is the earth after Adam and Eve, like, ate from the apple and, brought sin to the world, right? So Valor is the pre-Middle Earth. And, like, all these people are basically gods and goddesses on their own right within the world sense. Everything is perfect. There's no, it's like no sin, no death, no cancer, no evil, no murder, no nothing. It's a basically like a perfect heavenly like place. The Similarian, Gandalf is introduced as a spirit named Olurin, and he only took on the flesh of men so that the people of Middle Earth would trust him and have faith in his mission. So if you read Similarian, you'll see Gandalf as a spirit, not flesh, called Olurin. So he comes to Middle Earth and, has a mission, blah, 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 similar to Christ left heaven to come to earth and took bodily form to rescue humanity from sin and Satan. When we first meet Gandalf in Fellowship of the Ring, we encounter a wizened, I love that word, wizened old man with a long grey beard and bushy eyebrow, a flowing cloak, and a wooden staff worn for travel like Jesus. Everywhere Gandalf goes, he seeks to help others, restore hope, and fight evil. He travels so extensively that the elves and men of Gondor call him Mithrandir, which means the Grey Pilgrim. Also, like Jesus, Gandalf possesses several different names that each have a unique meaning. In Canuus, Latspell, Reindeer, Alurin, Tharkin. Tolkien presents a duality of Gandalf as Alurin, the spirit who takes on earthly existence to save humanity. There's different aspects of Gandalf himself within the context of the Middle Earth, is I guess what I'm trying to say, and each represent a different character or figure depending on what name he takes on. So every time you call him Ulurin, he is spirit. If you call him Gandalf the Grey, he is Jesus on the earth as his mission, like, worn clothes and traveling the world and healing people.
Are those words all used for him in the book?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, so they don't do that in the movie.
Yeah, well, they do. They do call him...
I thought in The Hobbit they call him Mithrandir.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. And then, of course, in the next movie, Gandalf becomes not Gandalf the Grey, but Gandalf the White, which represents the resurrected Jesus Christ.
Oh.
Mm-hmm. Pretty sweet. So, as Jesus says...
Oh, it all makes sense now. That's why he threw himself off the cliff and then rides off on the dragon. Spoiler alert.
Yep. The slow journey through the mountains comes to a terrifying climax when the Fellowship is chased by a fiery demon of the ancient world called Balrog. In this heart-pounding moment, surrounded by fire, darkness, whizzing arrows, and terrified screams, Gandalf realizes that no one will escape the mines alive unless he puts his life at stake for his friends. As Jesus once said, greater love hath no man than this, that a man lay down his life for his friends. John 15:13. As the Fellowship begins to cross the treacherous bridge of Khazad-dûm, the Balrog closes in from behind, but Gandalf takes the rear guard and turns to face the monstrous beast alone. Standing on the bridge, surrounded by darkness, Gandalf faces his enemy of flame and shadow and willingly sacrifices his life to save his friends. Tears are shed, hope is lost by others, and Aragorn's heart wavers at the loss of his mentor. But Gandalf's story does not end with his sacrifice. So, even though, as you said, J.R.R. Tolkien doesn't like allegories, you could sit all day and talk about...
It's not as much of an allegory. That's what I was saying, yes, it's an allegory, but it's really more just when you write a good and evil story, and when you're a Christian and you're writing this good and evil story, you're not going to be able to help but put this stuff in there. It's truth. All of these things are true, and it gets distilled down into the story.
But I don't see any references in Harry Potter. I see some, but not a lot, like Lord of the Rings, or even more in Narnia.
It's not as pronounced.
Star Wars, none, or not very much.
You don't see the biblical truths in Star Wars?
A little bit, but I see... when you have a spirit that is good and an angelic figure who falls and tempts people, he creates the One Ring and then tempts other leaders around the world and makes them their own ring to possess them. Mm-hmm. The One Ring is kind of like the apple from Garden of Eden, and it just... everywhere you go, you're tempted by the apple. The apple is a physical form.
Yeah, it's definitely more of a correlation than anything like in Star Wars or in Harry Potter. But
Aragorn is the rightful heir, the king, kind of like Jesus was, but he doesn't want it, and he's not doing it the way that the Pharisees and the Jews wanted him to. Because when Jesus was walking on the earth, the Pharisees and the Jews wanted him to destroy the Roman government and take his place and murder his enemies, and Jesus was like, yeah, I ain't doing that. I'm here for another reason, and they got pissed off. And Aragorn kind of has this heir to the throne, meaning he is the one true king, but he's like, yeah, I'm not gonna do that. I'm gonna step aside and put my, Aragorn says he's gonna put his kingship, whatever heritage is, and become a strider, protector of the Fellowship, a man in the world who goes from town to town, or Gandalf, who could be very powerful, but he chooses to be. Like all of these things are just so. The way they're written and made, and even I don't. When I think about it, before the time of Christ, if you pictured a man who came who was God and was resurrected and came in the form of man, how would you picture that God? Would you picture him like Jesus, or would you picture him without ever knowing who Jesus was, a man of power, someone who comes and kills his enemies and destroys armies and tells people to worship him now, or else he's gonna wipe the floor with you?
That's what everybody thought he was gonna be when
right.
you read the Bible.
And so that storyline and the way it plays out in Lord of the Rings has characters that people didn't think the world would ever put. Frodo is a small hobbit with no power. He can't even fight, but he is the only one that can take on this great basically he can take the apple in his hand and not eat it, right?
Yeah.
Gandalf is this powerful wizard who could do all kinds of stuff, but chooses to be a man of the world and live without a home and sandals and pointy hat and bushy beard. He's not Aragorn, who's supposed to be a king, is choosing to live instead as a strider, someone who goes on the horse and goes from town to town helping people.
Yeah.
All of these people are not the people you would think of in your head to be the one who should be in charge of saving the world. Right. You would picture Captain America, Iron Man, Spider-Man, Superman, a Jedi, a powerful Jedi like Luke Skywalker, or Rey, who carry immense power, or Anakin.
Without any training.
Without any training. Well, if you think about it, Luke had no training, and just people like to skip that part.
Well, he didn't really. He did have some training.
Yeah, so did Rey, but they barely had any training compared to the epic Jedis of the past. Anakin, Obi-Wan had way more training than Luke.
Rey didn't have any training, though. Not till she met Luke.
That's what I'm saying.
And then he didn't even really teach her anything in regards to lightsaber fighting.
No, neither did Luke Skywalker have the same type of training.
Yeah, he did.
He had Yoda.
He had Obi-Wan train him with the training droid.
Yeah.
A little bit. One scene right before he died.
He still had more training than Rey.
Anyway.
Yeah. The point is, all I was trying to say was, remember Anakin? He's a little boy in the pod racer and he beats everyone. He's a little...
Born with the Force.
Yeah.
The new Mulan movie. She's just born with chi and she knows how to do it.
I don't know why. It works in Star Wars. I can skip that with Anakin, Luke, Rey. But for whatever reason, it doesn't work in, you were saying, Mulan. Because I think... Well, first of all... Mulan was a girl who barely had any training, who learned at the camp, and then stood her ground and showed that she could walk with the men. She wasn't walking into camp. Her entire
story, the whole point of Mulan is that she learned how to be a warrior.
Right.
And they took that away.
Right. And it just kind of pisses you off because you're like, the reason Mulan is good is because she was just a girl with no special powers or abilities who didn't want her father to go die in a war, so she pretended to be man and actually trained with the rest of men who didn't know how to fight and showed she could walk with the best of them and use her intellect as more of a strength than brute force with the... So, I mean, the animated movie is so freaking good, and they butchered it.
Anyway, we already reviewed Mulan, so go watch that video.
Something I really liked in this movie when I was watching this, and I don't know why I never remembered this part from trying to watch it previously, at least, was the part where they were talking about Gollum, right? And Frodo was like, I'm trying to remember who was
Gandalf?
the Hobbit.
Oh, Frodo?
No, the Hobbit.
Bilbo, yeah.
He was like, Bilbo should have killed Gollum when he had the chance. And Gandalf brings up, he's like, but wait a minute, this wasn't Gollum's fault. This wasn't something Gollum did. This was the ring that did this to Gollum. And he's like, and fate has told me that Gollum still has a part to play.
Right.
I thought that was so...
Don't be so quick to pass out
judgment.
Shaping judgment.
Yeah.
Because nobody knows what everybody's is like, and that's when the famous line comes in. Gollum was meant to have the ring as much as Bilbo, and now you all were meant to have it. Like, remember that.
Yeah.
Remember, you always had a path. It's kind of like Jesus talking to Judas, and Gollum could be Judas in a lot of ways. You know what I'm saying? Like, Jesus knew all along that Judas was going to betray him, but yet at the same time, let Judas's story continue on anyway, like he had a part to play in the grand scale of things. Even though, like Gandalf is saying to Frodo, but Gollum is still important to the story. Like he matters, and yeah, I kind of following along with what you're trying to say.
I thought that was just absolutely amazing. I don't know why I had never even noticed that particular scene previously. But, like, it really, watching it in the theater, it really stuck out to me. And I was just like, wow.
And like, the crazy thing is, like, these people who have had the ring have all been hobbits. Gollum was a hobbit-like creature before he got turned into Gollum. Bilbo was a hobbit who was tempted by the ring but never fully gave in. And now Frodo has the ring also, just like Bilbo and Gollum. But nobody fell as badly. Like, Gollum felt really badly. Bilbo felt not as badly, but badly enough where it didn't completely overtake him. And Frodo is basically like, I effing hate this thing. It's like somebody, like most of the time in Frodo and Fellowship of the Ring is like, please, can you please just take this? Take it from me, please. And they're all like, no, we can't.
It looked like he was so close to doing it, but, he knew he had to take it to Mordor.
Yeah.
Because otherwise someone else would just find it.
Right.
It was amazing.
Well, we could sit all day and have a 5-hour discussion about all the things that the movie and these books say, but I think we've covered enough. Please tune in next time as we will be seeing Two Towers and Return of the King and finishing up the trilogy. And I can't wait to discuss this with Shannon and George here because I think we've got some good conversations going.
Absolutely.
I'm curious if I like the second one better than the first one.
You never know. You might.
Maybe.
I think the first movie is just kind of like a setup. And they're just really just trying to tell you, like, okay, guys, like, the ring is really messed up. Look what it's doing. Look what it's doing there. Look what it's... Did you see that part? How messed up is that? That's literally what I feel like Fellowship of the Ring is. It's just like a giant setup to the sequels. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then it's like, now with Fellowship of the Ring done, you're kind of like, okay, I think I get it. I think I know what
ring back. Okay.
Yeah, and I was like, okay, now going forward, what's going to happen next, and where does that story go? So tune in next time as we finish off Two Towers and Return of the King in IMAX. Take care, guys. Bye.